Hi, I had something else planned for today, but because the presentation of the Combat Suit Mercenaries prototype took me longer than I expected, we're going to focus on that this week, and next week we're going to have an episode focusing on both Mykeria and Combat Suit Mercenaries. So you'll hear some stuff about the changes I made to the prototype and some other things if I can fit them in. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and if you've already played Mykeria, please let me know in the activity feed and let's talk about your experience. Okay, so this is going to be the first presentation, the first kind of full presentation of the components at least, of the Combat Suit Mercenaries prototype. The kind of stuff that you can see here is pretty much this is all the components that are coming into the game. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of them. The main thing that I'll want to focus on today is going to be this screen over here, and that's the player screen on which you also can see a mech that the player has chosen and the pilot that's piloting that mech. We'll look into this in detail in a minute, but first I just want to show you an overview of the components. Here in the middle we've got the main strategic board, and this board is divided into 10 places, into 10 spaces. And in these 10 spaces, you've got different operations, different kind of missions that you can go on. Each of these missions is characterized by who's the attacker and who's the defender. These pawns over here, these tokens, they show the influence of the different families over a certain area. So right now, since this is the beginning of the game, everyone is even, and nobody's really leading any of the provinces just yet. We've also got an enemy board over here, and what this consists of is two decks. These are the regular enemies, and these are the elite enemies, and then we've got the enemy tactics. And I'm going to be showing this bit in a minute in detail. Back here we've got the mechs that you can buy. This is the armory board on which you can buy mechs. There are 3 different classes, light, medium and heavy. And you can also get different kinds of weapons, which are these tokens over there at the top. And over here we've got the academy, and this is the place where you can buy tactics. These are the tactics, and that's the cards that will allow you to do combat. And then we've got the doctrines as well. Doctrines are bonuses that stay with you once you buy them. And then we've got the pilot deck over here, so you can buy pilots as well. So whenever you do an operation, whenever you do a mission, you will fight enemies, and the number of enemies and the type of enemies is determined by your rank. At the beginning of the game, you're a recruit, and what that means is that you're not going to meet a lot of resistance because people around this planet and around this conflict don't yet know your full potential, so they don't feel like they have to send many troops out to kill you. So let's say we want to do this mission over here. Every time you do an operation, you act as the attacker. You can defend, but that's another thing, and we'll talk about it in the future. But for now, let's just focus on the attacks. So if we decide that we want to do this, we'll be fighting for House Nomebasu, for these guys, and we'll be fighting against House Soleme, these guys. The first thing you do is you draw 2 regular enemies from this deck. So we've got a mechanized response, and we've got a scout buggy. You've got these 2 enemies that you'll have to fight. Each of these enemies is characterized by different kinds of stats. At the top you've got their hit points, and the hit points are different depending on what kind of weapon you attack them with. Then you've got their basic damage, and then you've got a special condition under which they deal more damage. And I'll talk about this in a second. And then you've got their special ability here at the bottom, and each type of enemy has a bit different special ability, so it helps to create a more varied battle experience for the players. So how these bonus damage markers work is Each mech has three kinds of abilities. You've got targeting, you've got piloting, and scanning. Our characters give bonuses to these stats, so since our pilot is at her first level, the only bonus she really gets is +1 scanning, and that is shown by placing the cube on the little 2 on the mech. So right now what we want to check is whether or not that character is going to get dealt more damage. So we see that mechanized response deals 3 damage instead of 2 if the mech's scanning is lower than 3, and unfortunately it is, it's 2, so he's going to be dealing 3 damage. And then we've got a scout buggy which has a similar condition, but this one says that you have to have at least 4 piloting to not get that additional point of damage, 2 points of damage actually. Unfortunately, our character again is on 1 piloting, so unfortunately we're going to get the full load. Okay, so now what we do is we take these cards. These are 5 basic tactics cards. We shuffle them around, and the character gets to pick the 2 from the top. We've got 2 kinds of cards now. We've got anti-ballistic tactics and anti-laser tactics, and we have to choose one. Okay, so let's say that we're going to choose anti-ballistic tactics. It makes sense because these guys deal ballistic damage, and this card gives us the ability to ignore 2 ballistic damage, so that's good for us. So that's our choice. But at the moment that the player chooses his tactics card, you also draw an enemy tactics card, and we'll see what that is. Fortunately for us, this is a Mark II drones enemy tactics card, and this card says that all fighter drones in this combat gain bonuses. Fortunately, there are no combat drones in this combat, so this bonus is not applied and you just fight against what's on the table. We've got our anti-ballistic tactics card, and what this says is that we can reload 2 weapons and we can shoot 2 weapons. Our weapons don't need reloading at this time because they're not spent, so we're going to shoot 2 weapons. First off though, these 2 characters, these 2 enemies will attack us, and what they do is they deal 6 damage. Fortunately, we've got this card which says that we can ignore 2 damage, so all we get is 4 damage. We put it on the mech. The mech is now at 6 hit points, so this is going to be interesting because we might not actually be able to live through this. We'll see. But we've got the anti-ballistic tactics card, so we can shoot 2 weapons. Our 2 weapons are a level 2 missile weapon and a level 1 laser weapon. So what we can do is use the laser or energy weapon, spend it to hit this guy for 2 points, and he'll die because that's his hit points. So that's him done. And then we can shoot our second weapon, our missile weapon, and deal 3 missile damage to the mechanized response. And the problem with this guy is that since we've hit him for 3 missile damage, he only gets a wound, because he would need 4 missile damage to actually go down. So he gets a wound, and the wound doesn't, the wound decreases his hit points by 1. But unfortunately, since we've killed this guy and his special ability is that he's got +1 HP and +1 damage when he's alone, that didn't really do anything. So that's our problem for the next turn. Right now, it's our decision whether or not we're going to retreat. So I'm saying that I'm going to stand by and see how this fight goes. If we die, we die. I have a feeling that we might actually have a problem surviving this, but you know, we'll see. So since I decided not to retreat, I draw another card. Okay, so I got a card which is called Cautious Approach, and this card allows me to reload 1 weapon, which is going to be very handy because If I don't do that, I won't have any weapons to fire. So I reload one weapon, and then I can shoot two weapons. And I can also ignore 2 damage dealt by any source. The mechanized response at this point deals 4 damage, but thanks to this card, I only get 2. Right now, this mech is at 4 points of health. I've gotten 6 points of damage, he's got 10 hit points, so 4 more damage and I'm dead. Which basically means that if the next card doesn't allow me to ignore 2 damage of any kind, I'm going to be dead, because right now I can't really destroy the mechanized response. I have to use this weapon again and deal another wound to him. Normally, he'd be dead right now, but he's alone, so he gets this bonus. So right now he's got 5 hit points for missiles. He's got 5 hit points and 2 wounds, which means he's got 3 hit points. Okay, I'm lucky. I got exactly the card that I wanted. It's the regroup card, and it allows me to shoot 1 weapon and reload 2 weapons. I reload 2 weapons, and I also can ignore 2 damage dealt from any source, which is good because he now hits me with 4 damage again. I'm at 8 points, so the mech is almost destroyed, but we're going to finish it this round, because no matter what weapon I use now, I will destroy him. If I use the missile weapons, that's 5 minus 2, that's 3, and this weapon deals 3 missile damage. And if I use the energy weapon, it's the same deal. It's 3 plus 1, that's 4, minus 2, that's 2, and that deals 2 damage. So I just fire any of these weapons. Let's say I just finish him off with the laser. Bam, he's dead. So that wasn't an especially easy combat, but I was able to live through it, which is good. And right now, you might have noticed, by the way, that I've only taken 1 of these enemy tactics cards. That's because you only draw 1, and that's the card that is applied to the entire battle when you fight against NPCs. Okay, so that's me done. Right now I've got this 1 card left in my hand, and I can decide what to do with it. I can either put it on the top or on the bottom of my tactics deck, which isn't very big now because it's only 2 cards right now, so it doesn't really matter because I'll be drawing both of them. What else happens? Since this was our first battle, we also get an upgrade, which doesn't do anything just yet, but when we reach this spot, you will get a veterancy upgrade, and that will allow you to buy more stuff, but also it's going to make combat more difficult. And our pilot gets a level up because she survived the battle. Let's just adjust this. Okay, so we did this battle, and what this says is that we've got 2 flags, so that means 2 influence. We change 2 influence on the map. Right now, they're very even. After we've done this, we fought for Nobebasu against Solomei. So we take 2 Nobebasu tokens and we put them here. And there's a maximum of 5 influence per province, which means that right now, Nobebasu leads this province, thanks to us, thanks to our support. Okay, so this is how combat works. I'm still working on it since, especially on the low levels, especially while you're a recruit, it can be quite cutthroat often, as you could see. I barely survived this encounter, but I'm quite happy with how it worked out, and I'll see how I can improve it in the future. And I hope you'll be there to see how my work is going to progress. So that's it for today, and I'll see you around.